Aloha. Welcome to Fast, Healthy, and Ono Cooking's Locally Grown series, where we'll be focusing on locally grown produce that is inexpensive or easily grown. Tonight, we'll be learning how to make Japanese-style simmered Kapocha and Kapocha pumpkin pie. Also, there will be a link for a one-stop sign up for the November-December classes, and it will be in the chat. We'll also be extending a program by 15 minutes so we can include a Q&A with Dr. Amjad Ahmed from the UH College of Tropical Agriculture. My name is Cindy Ling, and I'm an AARP Hawaii volunteer. I'll be your host tonight on behalf of our sponsors, Kaunoa Senior Services on Maui, U'ala Leaf Cafe at Windward Community College, and AARP Hawaii. Welcome. For those of you who are new or may be unfamiliar with AARP Hawaii, we are a membership organization for people 50 and older, but what we do for everyone. We hope that with this series, you can learn some techniques that you can use to build or maintain a healthy lifestyle. So let's do a quick bit of housekeeping. This is a picture of what you should be seeing at the bottom of your Zoom screen on a PC and Mac, and possibly the top of the screen on an iPad. Everybody is currently on mute. If you want to submit a question or comment, please click on the button that says Q&A and type in your question. I will be monitoring the questions and be making sure they get asked if you watch. I will be monitoring your questions and making sure they get asked. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you may type your questions in the comments. We won't be using the raise hand command because questions will be submitted in the Q&A. The chat command also isn't necessarily going to be needed unless you want to communicate a technical issue. Alice Swift, Dave DeWitt, and Jackie Boland are standing by to help. So please make sure you use the Q&A for questions and comments. We recommend that you select speaker's side-by-side view rather than gallery view for this presentation. Do this by clicking on the upper right part of your screen where it says View. Once you are in that view, you can change the size of the slides or of the speaker simply by clicking and dragging on the middle bar. Finally, we have added closed captioning to this presentation for those who have difficulty hearing. You can turn this off on your end by clicking on the CC Live Transcript button in the lower right side of your screen and clicking on Hide Subtitle. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Chef Daniel Swift, who will be leading us through the cooking series. Now, before he comes on, I want to tell you that there's not going to be a class next week. There will be no class. Next class will be starting in November 4th, so that Chef Dan will be off getting more recipes and checking on his garden. So you already saw the sneak preview of the classes coming up, and now here's Chef Dan.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. I didn't realize we didn't have class next week. Need to look at the schedule. I only work a week out, so I get the week off. All right, awesome. Well, thanks for the intro, and welcome back, everyone, to our last class, kind of focusing on local foods that we are really familiar with. We see a lot in different recipes and at the farmer's market and or the supermarket. And we're just trying to come up with some super easy and healthy ways that you can introduce new recipes into your repertoire. So tonight it is kabocha. And I got one large whole one. This particular one came from Times here in Kaneohe. It was like 6 pounds. It was $1.69 a pound. And you can still pick them up though at the market as well. I went last week to the Windward Mall Market where we usually go, but they were all a little bit too large. So, and I think it was about $2 a pound. So the one I looked at was almost $20. It was almost 10 pounds, a little bit under. So it depends on what you're looking for quantity wise, where you're going to end up getting it. We'll talk about that as we get going. And then we've got, we're going to make a pie tonight. We're not doing the crust. We'll talk about that a little bit, but maybe another class. we can go over pie crust, but those you can pick up in the store, or you may be familiar and making your own pie crust already. And then we're doing a nice, well, clay pot dish or a donabe dish, just with some simple Japanese style ingredients. And we let it come to a boil and it's basically done. This is really delicious. I made a couple twists on that, and then a couple other items hopefully we'll have time for as we get going. But I wanted to point out just a couple benefits to it. It's also known as Japanese pumpkin, and now it's the time of year where you're seeing lots of pumpkins and whatnot out. So you should be able to find these in the supermarket and or at the, I don't know if it works better like that, and or like I said, at the farmer's market. So keep in mind that it is a popular time of year. So when they come in, they may sell out relatively quickly. You want to sort of watch that. It is a good source of fiber, vitamin A and C. The fiber, a lot of it is in the meat as well, but also in the rind. It can be peeled or not, depends on you. Some people eat it. I tend to eat it, but not everybody enjoys it. So if you cook it with the skin on, they could just remove it as it sort of separates from the meat. High in beta carotene, and I put down here that it's perfect for any cooking method. So anything from grilling to braising to steaming to boiling, sauteing, roasting. It's just great, like all squashes. And it's a little firmer than some, so it holds up really well. So this is what's left, about a quarter of the whole one that I picked up at the store. And I think it was like 4.5 pounds, something like that. And then I also grabbed, just to show you, in the produce section, you'll usually find, at least at times, already cubed. So this little container here that I'm going to use for part of the dishes tonight came from this bag. So it was already quartered and cut into small pieces. The seeds were removed, and then it was vacuum packed. So you can find butternut squash, you can find kabocha, and there may be a couple other ones. Sometimes you'll see kalo peeled and cut and then vacuum sealed. So if you're in a hurry or you just want a smaller quantity, this bag would work perfect for about the pie recipe by itself, or the recipe that we're doing here by itself. It wouldn't be enough to do both recipes. So if you want to do both, you would need two bags there. So I'm going to use this one to get going, but let me show you first really quick just how to remove the seeds. So this was just cut in quarters, and do keep in mind, these are pretty firm. So when you're cutting them, you want to be really careful, because the more you use pressure when you're cutting something that's firmer, the worse the accidents are if you accidentally happen to slip and cut yourself. So you do, of course, always want a nice sharp knife, but you also want to just be really careful to always like keep your fingers out of the way. So if I were to cut this into a smaller chunk, pretending it was a whole one or a half a one, I'd always keep my fingers up on the top of my blade using a large French knife, and then I would just keep them like this, so there's no chance of them coming underneath the blade, and then I would press down. And so if it's firm, then you can just kind of rock it back and forth, try not to spill anything, and work its way through the squash. So that being done, I'll just show you, the seeds scrape out just like any number of squashes that we do. And those can be saved. I didn't save them. Well, I didn't throw them away, but I didn't prepare them, like washing them and drying them, seasoning them and roasting them. But you can do that as well if you want. But the seeds and the inner membrane comes off really, really easily. And then that could be saved to utilize to be toasted and whatnot if you wanted to. Now you have the whole one, and you can use a peeler on this. The skin is firm, but a peeler will take it off. Sometimes it's even just striped, so you might just remove a couple layers and leave some of the skin on. So not everybody, like I said, wants to eat all of the skin, but it gives you a really nice color when you're dealing with the finished product. If you're serving it whole, it has a nice different shades of green leading into the orange, which looks really, really pretty. So feel free to use a peeler for that. Or like I said, you could use your French knife or your whatever knife you're using at home And then just make sure it's got a flat base, and then you come back and you can just cut as thin a layer off as possible, only removing the outer portion to expose the meat. So that's what we did for the pie, but that's not what we're going to do for the other dish here. I'll set this aside.
Okay, I have a quick question from, oh, sorry, I have a quick question from Marianne about cutting the kabocha. Now you showed cutting a half one, but if you're cutting a whole one, what are you going to do with that?
It will be the same technique in terms of safety. Make sure that it's on the flattest part possible. Get your knife on top and then rock it back and forth. Just keep your hands up and away. You know, don't come in and like try to chop it in half with a big cleaver or something. You're better off just going slowly and working your way through it. And this is an 8-inch French knife. You would need at least an 8-inch French knife for that. The one that I saw at the market would actually be too big. For this knife, I'd go with one of the longer ones that I have, a 10 or a 12-inch knife. So same process, just keep your fingers out of the way, rock it back and forth. It almost sort of splits like wood in a way. You could cut halfway through and twist your knife and it kind of splits the squash in half, which is really, really simple. So yeah, just be really careful when you're doing that. Okay. And then I'm going to just show you this. This is just so simple. This recipe, and I love it. We're taking the cut squash. This has been washed and it just has the rind, and I'm putting the skin side down and lining it in the pot. I only have one clay pot, so I'll do the demo here, but the finished one will come out of the clay pot. And there's a couple places, in a Japanese store, you can buy at Korean markets. You can get the little clay pots. The Danabe might be the term for it, or any pot that has a nice fitting lid would work well. And I really like the flavor that you get when you're working with clay and ceramic pots. So this one's large enough that I can spread everything across the bottom. And then I'm just simply taking these ingredients that I have here. So I've got, the recipe calls for water or dashi, and this is just a dashi base, so I use that with some water, which works great. It calls for white tamari, just so it doesn't get too dark, although you can use a regular soy or a low sodium soy as well. I used liquid aminos, which is like a substitute oftentimes for soy sauce, or vegans use it, and a little bit of water, so I use that. I'm going to mix that in. Calls for mirin, which is just sweetened sake. You can also use a dry sake. I have one here. If I wanted to eliminate some of the sugar that you'd get from the mirin, you can do that, but I have the regular mirin here, and I can mix that. And then it does call for a little bit of sweetness, not a lot. And the sweetener that you use is totally up to you. What I have tonight is just a little bit of honey. So I thought we haven't used that recently. And remember, honey's pretty sweet. It doesn't take much. I've got like a teaspoon here, and I'm just going to stir that in.
Somebody's asking about where can you purchase the white tamari?
You should be able to find it at like Times, Safeway. The selections that they have today in the condiment aisle and the soy sauce aisle is really kind of mind-boggling. There's so many different varieties of stuff out there. That's where we get it when we're buying it for the house. And we get it from Chef's Zone when we order it for the restaurant. And then that simply just goes on top, and we put it on the burner. I'm going to turn it on high and watch it. Once it comes to a boil, I'll reduce it, put the lid on it, and that cooks probably, depending on the chunks and the size that you're working with, those can cook all the way through until tender between 5 and 10 minutes. So the one that I did earlier is a little bit smaller pieces, and I went for about 9 minutes, and it worked perfectly. So you just want to take a toothpick or a fork or a paring knife and poke it until it's to the point that you like it. Maybe you want a little firmer, maybe you want a little softer, totally up to you. So that'll cook and bring us right up to the next one, which will be the pie. Very good. Love that flavor. All right, so now we look at the ingredients for the pie. It's very simple, and this is really just a version of pumpkin pie, more or less, where we're substituting the boiled kabocha for the pumpkin. And you know, it's very similar in taste. It's less sweet, so you can add a little bit of extra sweetness to it if you want to, or you can keep it a little bit less sweet and even make it a savory. So I was thinking today that this would be a great savory pie if I put in herbs and still have the eggs. I'd still have the salt, not the pumpkin spice, but like I said, fresh herbs, a little bit of low-fat cheese, and I could bake it and it would come out great.
Dan, we have a question from Facebook from Gigi Wong Monaco, and she's asking, what's the difference between regular tamari and white tamari? Is it less sodium?
Sorry, I had to grab my pie shell. Well, they make both with less sodium, so you can get the less sodium one, but it's in the process for making it. So we're trying to utilize items that call for or that have a little bit less sodium in them. So that's why we tend to do that. But in this case, it's more of the flavor profile, which is lighter, and it doesn't impact the color of the finished product. So not everything you want to have that dark color that you get from soy, sort of like balsamic vinegar. If you're using a balsamic vinegar, it can tend to overpower the color of dressings and things like that.
So the white is lighter?
Yeah, it's lighter. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. And then great question from Facebook even. Wow. So this is, you can see it's already soft because I boiled it. The one thing you're going to want to do, and I noticed today as I was mashing it and making the pie that's finished already, is drain it after you've boiled it till it's tender and let it set out and dry really well. If you were to make the recipe immediately, it could be a little bit too wet. So you want to make sure that this squash that you boil, even if you're doing it for pumpkin and pumpkin pie, making your own at home, always make sure you run it through a strainer and let it set out and air dry to get all that excess moisture. Otherwise, you need to cut back on the amount of milk that you'll be using. So this mashes up really easy, as you can see. This would be a great combination with what we've done over the course of the last few weeks. This with some smashed ulu with kalo. Now, the three of those boiled together and mashed would be great as like a side, like almost like a mashed potato would be awesome, but it'd be giving you your starch and your vegetable together. So here I've got some brown coconut sugar, a little bit of salt, my pumpkin spice. We just do our own blend here. What I always recommend when we do our baking classes is that you purchase the pumpkin spice already blended together, so you don't have to buy cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, all the different ones in the containers. Just buy the little one that says pumpkin pie spice, and it has the blend already in there. And I just need to mix this together, and then I'm going to add the eggs and the milk.
Okay, a question. 4 cups of kapocha is how many pounds of the fresh?
For the 4 cups?
Yeah, well, how many pounds?
A cup is usually around 8 ounces. Because you have the airspace in there, it's a little bit less. So I would say probably closer to 6 ounces. So 6 times 4, 24. You're looking at about 24, pound and a half. So if you started with like 2 pounds, maybe slightly more than that, you should be able to get it, which is about what those bags are. Okay, then this has come to a boil. I'm just going to reduce it a little bit. Smells great. And I'm going to throw the lid.
Now, Ruth wants to know if you can use frozen kapocha, and is there any adjustments that you need to do if you use the frozen one?
You can. I meant to buy some. I apologize. I forgot to go by the frozen section. I wanted to show that option as well. You just have to keep in mind that when most items are frozen and thawed, they bleed a little bit of water. So you might have to make adjustments to the amount of liquid that we use. So other than that, yeah, you can, it's all universal. You can use the pre-cut ones. You can cut your own. You can buy the frozen one. They don't have it in a can puree yet, but the sweet potato puree is right next to the pumpkin. It's very, very similar to the taste of the kabocha, but it's a little less sweet. or excuse me, it's a little more sweet. This is a little bit less. So you can see, and I want a couple chunks, and I meant to actually keep some chunks, but I mushed them all up. It's pretty thin already. So I've got my, I chose the skim evaporated milk for this recipe because we're just trying to cut back on the fat. And I ended up going with this. I think the recipe calls for 12 ounces, but because this was moist, I went with about 8 ounces, so slightly less than what the recipe called for. And then we just incorporate that together. A whisk at this stage works a little bit better. So I can take just a wire whisk and mix everything together. So this will have some texture to it. You could put it in a food processor and make it ultra smooth. You could run it through a strainer if you want it ultra smooth as well. And you'd be in good shape. And then what I recommended on the recipe is to just buy one of the pre-made shells. They're usually 9 to 10 inches in diameter. This one's a little smaller. This is only like a 7.5 inch pie tin. We don't use those, but I made the crust myself. So this will be more than enough batter for this particular one, but it should be just about right for making one that's the larger 10-inch one. So in the frozen section of the supermarket, they have the pre-pressed pie shells. They usually comes in packs of 2, and you can pick those up there. And you can make 2 thinner ones or 1 big deep one. Okay. Right? And then I just simply need to pour the batter in.
Now, Laureen was asking about the taste of the kabocha pumpkin compared to the butternut squash.
Yeah, they're very similar. It's all a little more tart, I would say, on the kabocha, but the taste is very similar. A little more sweetness in the butternut, but they're really, really close. Very, very similar in taste. So if you like butternut, you're going to like kabocha and vice versa. And we're all right on time. So what I meant to do is set aside a couple chunks and put them in there, like the one that I'll show you that's done already. But I was talking and not paying attention. Now I'm going to bake this. I got it at 350 right now. And the little oven works fine. What you want to do when you're baking pies, the key is to just make sure you don't like burn the crust while you're trying to get the filling to set. So this is basically a custard pie. So what we've done is made a custard with the eggs and the milk and then the puree and the seasonings, of course, or the sugar and the spices. But it's a custard. So when you have a wet custard and you're putting it in a pie shell, you want to make sure that it's cooked to an internal temperature that cooks the eggs, which is what will coagulate and then hold the pie in steady, and it'll hold its shape when you cut it. So internal temperature, we need to get to 165. So 350 for about 30 minutes. I'll check it. This oven might take a little bit longer. In the back, it was about 30 minutes. And then I let it go for about 2 minutes after that, and it turned out perfect. So let me show you that really quick. So here's the one that I did earlier. And this is what I meant to do, is keep a couple chunks set aside to where I could drop them in there, just so it shows that it doesn't look exactly like a pumpkin pie. It's something a little bit different. And then we should be able to cut it and plate up a small piece.
Now, Pam wants to know, does the coconut sugar taste like coconut?
Not really. It has a little bit of coconut flavor. And they have a low sugar, brown sugar substitute. So I was trying to get something that would have that flavor. And that's the only one that I have in the kitchen that's closest and dark as well. So it does have a little bit of the flavor, but it doesn't taste like coconut milk per se. All right. So there, you can see the custard set up nice. And if you're serving it with a little piece on top, then you have the distinction that it's a little bit different. And you could put, a whipped topping on that. But basically, this is a substitute for a pumpkin pie, which turns out great. A yogurt would do well if you're trying to stay on the leaner side. And one thing to note with custard pies that are really wet, you never get the bottom crust to turn crispy and brown because it's got all this wet liquid sitting on top of it. So if you're really into baking and you have time, what I normally do around Thanksgiving and Christmas is for my pies is I blind bake them, which means you roll the crust out, put it in the pan, line it with foil or parchment paper, and then weight it with rice or beans or these little metal weights. And I bake the crust separately. So it's completely browned and baked and solid. And then I'll make my custard on the stove, pour it in while it's hot, spread it around, and then let it set. That way I'm guaranteed the bottom gets crispy. If you really want to get crazy, you can add a layer of brushed chocolate that's been melted between that, and that will protect the crust. So you got a crispy crust all the way around, a layer of chocolate to protect it from that hot custard so it stays crisp. So otherwise, I mean, we've kind of grown accustomed to eating a crust that's only a little brown on the bottom, and then the rest of it is a little bit, not doughy, but yeah, doughy. So it just depends on what you like. So I'm going to heat it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sandra wants to know, can you substitute brown sugar?
Yeah, absolutely. I always put on the recipe, you know, I think on this one, I put brown sugar or your favorite sugar substitute. So you could use monk sugar, anything you want in terms of regular sugars, anything to give it sweetness. So a sugar substitute, honey would have been good in this recipe as well. Totally up to you. It depends on if you're watching your intake of carbs or things like that. So that's totally up to you. And what we encourage is you to get a little creative. Maybe you don't have the brown coconut sugar. This was donated, so that's why I have it. So you can use brown sugar, or you could use powdered sugar or granulated sugar. Just add it slowly and do it to taste and see what you like flavor-wise in terms of the sweetness, and then you can stop. But anything like that would work to sweeten it. So I've got a couple. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Can you steam or bake the leftover filling in custard cups?
Absolutely. Yep. You have a custard here. So your custard can be baked or steamed. It doesn't matter. It's like a creme brulee or a flan or anything like that. It's going to work perfect. So jump in there, get creative. You could add, well, this is sweetened, but like I said earlier, if you did a savory one, it could have green onions and different things in it. Would be really nice. Which reminds me, it's like I did a couple extra things today. I got some new spices to play, spice mix to play with Bill and Jen. Jill's a local girl. They're on holiday and they swung by and dropped this off for me and said hello and got some spices and stuff. But it inspired me to utilize the little bit of extra that I had to create another dish. So what I did was just took some bok choy and I laid out a piece of the top, the nice loose leaf, and any cabbage would work for this, or kale, or any large leafy item. And then I put the stem portion, a piece of the, a piece of the butter or the kapocha, a little bit of peppers and an onion. I seasoned it with the seasoning, and then I rolled it up and steamed it. And I'm going to show you that here in the end. And I had this little bit left over of the bok choy stems and leaves, and I'm going to add that to this dish. So perfect by itself, like we're doing over here. Looks great, and that one's done. But you could also add something that you have a little bit left over at home. You got white cabbage, or you have bok choy, or you have kale, or something else, sliced onions, green onions, anything like that could also be added in here, and give it just a minute or two, and then you'll have the whole dish completely done. So get creative and try to find inspiration in the stuff that you already have in your house or in your refrigerator.
Okay, then, I have a vegan question. She wants to know, well, this person wants to know if you can use flaxseed instead of eggs and almond milk instead of evaporated milk to make it a vegan recipe.
Yeah, almond milk will work great. Flaxseed will not give you, it will absorb some of the moisture, but it won't really necessarily give you the binding that you need. So you could use starch, like cornstarch, arrowroot. You could also get an egg replacer. They make vegan egg replacer. So the role of the egg today in dishes like that is that it's our binding agent, right? That's what's going to set the pie so that we cut it and it comes out in a wedge and doesn't droop. Now, if you don't want to do that and you want to just do it in individual cups using flaxseed, that would probably work. It would be more like a pudding, and you can just put it in an individual cup. It would work fine.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
No,
I have a question
here's the one I rolled up right there.
Okay, I have a question from Janice. She wants to know, how do you grill it? How thick do you make the cuts? Any kind of seasonings?
Yeah, I would cut it in pieces like this. So wedges that are probably not more than about a ½ inch thick. So you could peel it or not peel it. Cut it in wedges so that you can utilize the whole squash. Toss it in a little bit of your favorite oil and seasoning, and then right onto the grill. That would work great. So roasting works perfect as well. So you can simply do the same process and put it in the oven and do it. You could do it on the grill, wrapped in foil, which would trap in the moisture. So as long as you're controlling the thickness and the temperature, you'll be fine. And then here are the finished ones, everyone. And I just took this and rolled it up like that. Vegetarian option, right? And sprayed it with a little bit of avocado oil and seasoned it with the great seasoning that I got from Ben and Jill. And then I steamed it for about 6 minutes and it came out perfect. So this is all nice and tender, a good little vegetarian option for what you might want to eat. This one is done. And then I still had more left. So I threw together, I don't want to cut in for the time too much. I made a non-vegetarian item. And this particular one is where I had some sausage in the kitchen. So what I did was grab the leftover kapocha and I cut it into small pieces. And I cut the sausage into small pieces. I had some kalo left over from our class from a couple weeks ago in the fridge. So I cut that into small dice as well. I mixed it with some onion, a little bit of seasoning, some sage in this case to make it sort of a, holiday-esque. And this I then just filled into the wedge of the squash. And it might be a little darker than some people like, but I prefer to have it a little bit caramelized. And I had to remove the skin here. So that comes out so that we have the cooked sausage and all of the mixtures together. I'll cut one in half so we can sort of see it, or I'll cut them both actually. And I could have put ulu or anything else inside of that also. So you can see we've got the taro. Oh, and I put in an apple. So this was one of the things I went in the fridge. I'm like, what do we have? Diced everything up and then put it together and laid it inside of that hollowed portion of the squash and just baked it. So all of the juices from the apple and the sausage and everything leaches down into that well of the squash, creates a little bit of steam, adds some moisture to it, and it turns out really, really flavorful. And I still had a little bit of that stuffing left, so I just grabbed a tea leaf and rolled it up, the stuffing alone, in the tea leaf like this. And there's no rice or anything in there. It's just that stuffing with the kalo and everything else. And it's steamed together in that tea leaf. And that would impart some flavor to it, make it really earthy, which the kalo already is. The sage herb that I chose is already earthy. And this would be a good entree item. You could simply serve this with a little bit of gravy and your favorite vegetable. That would work great as well. So that one was just something that I came up with that was a little bit extra. So we've got that there. We've got the steamed one. We've got the pie. Now we just need to serve the last one that's boiled. And if you have other questions, Cindy, feel free. Now this can be served in the clay pot if you want. Just be careful. Actually, I set it down today when I cooked a batch on our plastic or our Rubbermaid cart, and it melted a ring in the top of it. So we'll always remember this dish because it marked our cart. And then I'm gonna just remove the lid, and you can use a spoon or you can use a pair of tongs to take out some of the finished kapocha, a couple pieces. This is a great side dish. It could also be an entree if you just wanted to go with vegetables for dinner. In that case, I would jazz it up a little bit with more of the vegetables like onions and things like that. But a few pieces of that right in there, a little bit of the cabbage leaves.
Now, Priscilla has a question. She's saying, when you say gravy, white or brown?
That's up to you. I'm tempted to say whatever you have left in the fridge, but if you're making it and planning it, this would be good with either one. So the sausage in this particular case is an Italian sausage. So it's pretty neutral. It's pork-based sausage, and it would take white or brown, either one. So it's kind of up to you what flavors you like. As long as you know your guests and you know who's eating, and if they have a preference, then you can go that route. But either one would work well on that particular dish. Okay. And then I'm just spooning a little bit of the sauce over the top. And that's ready to serve. That's nice and hot.
Donna wants to know, do you have a blog?
A blog. Do we have a blog? Is there a blog? I don't have a blog. I probably should have a blog. It was really nice for Ben and Jill to stop by today. And thanks to everyone for like emails and sending pictures of things that you make. And, you know, Jackie and all of the folks at AARP and myself, we're really happy to like see the opportunities that we have to grow and to bring new ideas to you folks. And we really appreciate your support. So I don't have a blog. I have an Instagram, but I think posted 2 things in a couple of years. TikTok's all the rage. I don't know if you guys are, I don't post on TikTok either, but I'm usually 10 years behind the curve. So in about 5 years, I'll be posting on Instagram and it'll be over. But I need to do that and get Facebook. So, but send me an email if you have questions or if you need recipe assistance or if you have pictures of stuff that you've done. I always love to see that. It's exciting for me. So yeah, I don't know if there are other questions, Cindy, because I know we got Dr. Ahmed talking tonight as well.
Wait, everything is, if you explained everything so wonderfully today, there were hardly any questions.
Oh, so, nice. That doesn't happen very often.
After you played everything, and I'll tell you what time I'm coming over. We're going to switch over to Ahmed when you do your closing.
Yeah, we're here. We're here. We're ready. I have plenty with all of the different items. So, all right. And so I guess I'm off next week. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Dan.
We'll see everyone the week after that, where we're moving into the comfort food, creative comfort foods, running through, I think, the latter part of the year. So have a safe week, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
And just to let people know, I have posted the link for the single sign up 5 times in the chat. So if you missed it, I don't know what to say, but you can always go to the calendar to sign up for the classes. If you do want to do this single sign up, do it by next week, Friday, because I want to have time to upload you before the first class. So if you miss next week, Friday, I'm afraid you'll have to individually sign up for the classes that you're interested in. All right, take it away, Cindy and Dr. Ahmed.
Okay. Mahalo. Mahalo nui, Chef Dan. Okay, so it is now my pleasure to introduce to you, or here's your quick preview of what will be coming up and then in November and December. Okay, so the first thing will be healthy lasagna. So don't forget, get ready. Make sure you download all your recipes. So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Amjad Ahmed. He's the Assistant Extension Agent at the UH College of Tropical Agriculture. Take it away, Dr. Ahmed.
Aloha, everybody. I hope everybody having a nice evening with this beautiful food that the chef has been trying and cooking. I hope you guys been trying it. Sorry, today I don't have a presentation because the school CTAR is going through the strategic planning, which I just finished a meeting and I'm still actually on the road. I pulled over to attend this meeting and I will be moving after to go home. I'm open for any questions you guys would like to me to answer. And about the kabocha, I would say mainly is if you want to grow it, you can grow it actually very easily. The main issue with it is the diseases, the pests. So either you make sure you find a variety that has good pest and disease resistance. You have so many diseases and pests that honestly, I mean, the kabocha and the similar crops from the same family, they get attacked with so many diseases. Just a little bit of humidity and boom, you are gonna have the powdery mildew, and then the leaves will be all covered with that white kind of dusty stuff that's gonna stop it from making photosynthesis. But also at the same time, if you get a good variety that has the disease and the pest resistance, it's very easy. You are gonna just put it, even you can put it in pot, but get ready, the branches will go all over. And the best thing to do if you wanna protect the fruits, if you have a good variety, there are so many insects that they attack the fruits. What they do, they sting it in many cases just to put their eggs in there. At the beginning, when just the fruit starts forming, the best thing to do is, again, variety, or you can put a bag around the fruit to stop the insect from coming in touch with the fruit and stinging it. So again, you can put it in the ground. It's gonna just go all over here and there. Then you're gonna look for the fruits in between the leaves. Or also what you can do, if you don't have the space, you can do trellis as well. Just keep in mind, these fruits get way heavy. So the trellis has to be really good quality ones that can handle the weight of the fruits. You fertilize it well, it's gonna make so many fruits, flowers, and then it will mostly all fruit. That's actually mainly about it. Again, varieties. Sometimes what you do, you find those varieties that they don't look really pretty. Not like the ones usually for the Halloween. But these, in many cases, they have lots of the good characteristics we look for. The disease resistance, the pest resistance, which makes them really good because they give the same, technically there's the same pumpkin. It's just, it has that extra genes that with the disease resistance. So I would recommend, usually we look at the things, we enjoy it, then we eat it. With the kabocha, forget about the eye. Look for the characteristics so you can harvest good pumpkins, good kabocha. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with lots of them, but they are all stinged and you cannot technically use them.
I have a couple questions already.
Of course.
Paula is saying something is eating my kabocha plant right after I put them in the ground. Is there any way to prevent it?
Yes. Again, what you can do, you can use the trellis, you can bag the fruit, that could protect it. Now, it depends on what's eating it. Is it slugs, usually, or it can be, honestly, can be even rats. But I want to see pictures in order to know what's exactly what's eating it. In general, I would put bags. You can find different types of bags. There is the mesh ones, kind of, they call it bird netting, screen nettings, or there are the ones that they are like a paper bag, but they have wax. So they're not gonna, if water or rain fall on them, they're not gonna like start all like shredding. they have layers of wax that will keep them together for longer time.
Thank you. There's another question from Kiana. She says, my 6-year-old wants to know why papaya and pumpkins have so many seeds.
You will be amazed of how many varieties of papaya and pumpkins that they don't have that many seeds. So most likely is the ones you trying, it has so many seeds. But in general, in fact, you have so many. We had one time, I think like 18 variety of this kabocha. We were looking for the ones with the disease resistance, so it can suit Hawaii because we have so many pest thresholds for this type of crops in Hawaii. And some of them you end up with just very small amount of seeds comparing with others. So it depends on the variety. There is no set of standard for the seeds amount.
Paula wants to know, do you sell the seeds at the UH?
I am not sure really. The best thing to do, just go to the UH Seed Lab. They are gonna have the list of the crops that they carry. Sometimes they are seasonal, maybe available, maybe not. So really it depends. I am not sure really what they have currently.
Let's see. Oh, Lynn wants to know, how can you tell if a pumpkin is sweet or not sweet when you go to the store?
That also depends on variety. You cannot really check it out by like the same thing with the melon or the watermelon. It really something comes with the variety. There is no, unless we open it and we do the bricks to know how sweet it is, we cannot tell ourselves.
Somebody wants to know, how do you grow kombuchas from the seed?
Easy. The best thing to do is start with seedlings. Don't put the seed directly in the ground. You need that. You need like a small trays. You have media in there. Can be peat moss, can be coconut coir, can be mix of both, can be compost, but just be careful. It has to be well composted compost. And then you put the seeds in there, nicely irrigated. Keep it in a sunny place at the same protected because, and it needs to protect it because birds, they would love to come and pick that seeds. And then when the seedlings is in a good size, and I would talk about between 6 and 12 inch, that will be a good size. Then I take it out into the field, into the ground. Before that, it will get attacked with so many stuff. You don't want to do that.
I have some combination questions. Two people are asking about how do you treat powdery mildew and pickle worms?
Yes.
Then they want to know where they can get pest and the disease resistant varieties and what are they called?
Yeah. The best thing to do is check first UH Seed Lab. I'm not really what they have. The other one is your neighbor, Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, the ones that they have the home garden. They usually carry varieties that's good for the area, usually, and ask them. That's to make sure. Second, for the powdery mildew, you can do alternative of soap and water, oil and soap, neem oil. You can find them all in the home garden section, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, and you name it. For the pickle worm, it depends on, you have some stuff that can be mixed in with the soil directly. And they are also approved, like carbaryl, for example. It's approved for the home gardens. When you're preparing the bed for the plant, you can mix in some. That will stop so much of insects. And then there are some products that they are solution and you can spray the plant with. And that's all available in the home garden section of so many of those supermarkets.
Thank you.
And they will have, by the way, they will have the insects listed on there as well.
Good. Richie wants to know, when you go to the market, how do you select the kabocha? More green or more yellow or orange or all green?
Usually the ones are already in the market, usually they are ready to go. Now, the color of the skin, don't let it stop you. Again, we found some varieties, they stay green while they are fully ripe. And if you buy the pre-prepared one, like for example, the one comes is like in a bubble bags from Costco, make sure to use it immediately. They for some reason, I think because of the air, they start becoming so mushy while you look at them, still they look good. So if you buy it, the one that's pre-cut, immediately use it. Don't wait for it.
Sandra wants to know, when you're growing your own kapocha, how do you know it's ready for harvest?
The fruits, one major, the head, the one that attach the stem with the fruit, will start getting drier. It may even start splitting. That's one. Another one also, you can tell that the fruit is ready. It's kind of, the skin will start kind of changing a little bit in a way. I don't really know how to describe it. It's, again, the stem, well, that's one major. The leaves, the larger leaves, the older leaves will start dying back. That's also a good indicator. Yeah.
Somebody wants to know, if a growing plant leaves have powdery mildew, should I just throw the whole plant away, assuming that it's not going to thrive?
No. What you want to do is, it depends on the number of leaves you have. I would start cutting those ones that they have the powdery mildew. Take them out. Don't leave them near the plant. Discard them. Get rid of them. And as long as you have some more leaves that they are not infected, spray them, fertilize the plant well. Hopefully it's going to start pushing more leaves, and the existing leaf will get bigger and it will continue.
Good answer. Now, somebody wants to know, if you've already cut your fresh kapocha or you bought one from the store, how long would it last on the counter?
If you cut it, I wouldn't leave it on the counter if you cut it. Especially if you leave it like it's so sweet. The sugar, bacteria and stuff will love it. So it will start, the infection, bacteria activities will start on it immediately. Overnight, you're going to have starting activities of bacteria and stuff like this. I wouldn't. The best thing to do is, if you cannot use it all, maybe freeze it. That would be the best way.
Good point. What about a whole fresh one from the store? Or maybe you just harvested from your vine? And how long will those stay on the counter?
That one can last actually for, I would say, weeks, 3-4 weeks, unless you harvested it way too old. That's another story. But in general, weeks, it's gonna stick on the counter table, no issues. Countertop, no issues.
I have a question from Terry. She wants to know if she's spraying her kombucha for pickle worms. Will they hurt her monarch butterflies or the caterpillars?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. And one more thing I want to add. Sorry, my mind was going to just give that point, and I didn't get the question. Sometime you have the kombucha on the counter, and then you are gonna see insects coming out of it. You say, "Oh, I left it too long." No, in many cases, again, when we were talking about the insect that they leave their eggs on the fruit, in many cases the eggs are maturing while the plant's on the counter, and then they start coming out. It doesn't mean they were infected after. They were infected when the fruit just formed. So that's another story. And sorry again, could you please give me the question?
Oh, okay. Her question was, if she sprays her kombucha For pickle worms, is it going to harm her monarch butterflies or caterpillars?
See, any chemicals, even if it is organic, it's going to have, it is going to have pros and cons. Any chemicals, you are killing in a certain way. For example, certain pesticides or they kill by contact. In many cases, whatever they touch, they will kill. Some of them are systemic, where the plant are gonna absorb them from the soil, and then any insect that suck on the plant juice, it will take that poison and die. So any chemical you use is gonna have pros and cons, and this is life. So yes, you use neem oil, too much of it, you are gonna kill, for example, the ladybugs as well. You're gonna kill the beneficial ones. It's really the balance in life, but that's the truth.
I have a question. They're saying, this person is saying the UH Seed Labs does not look like it has kapocha seeds now. Is there a time of year when they're more likely to have the seeds?
To be honest, I know what they are trying to go, what they are going right now. They are trying to be more specialized. So if you don't see if you see the kapocha on the list and it says not available now, then it's gonna be available at some point. But if you don't see the kapocha on the list, most likely they don't have it at all.
Okay, good.
Now, I want to just add one more thing, sorry. Some pesticides, they are called selective. They kill only the insect that they are on the list. In that case, but usually they are expensive and they are usually for more commercial rather than home garden. Yes, please.
Still more questions about the bags. Can you tell us a little bit more about the bag to put on and when to put it on?
Again, if you can put it when the plant is flowering, that will be the best. So you are avoiding more insects coming and laying eggs. If you pass that time and, for example, you want to make sure that the pollination will happen, immediately after the fruit just starts forming, I will add the bag around it. That will be the best. There are so many types of those fruit bags. You can go on Amazon and put fruit bags. Now, fruit bags, they come in many different sizes. You want to make sure the dimension you get is fit the type of crops you are working with. Like even mango, for example, is good to wrap the fruits. Guava is good to wrap the fruits. Grapes, so many fruits that you can actually bag the fruits. So, and they have so many different sizes and different types as well.
So we're hoping that if we grow our own kapocha, it's going to be about maybe 3 feet by 2 feet, big, humongous ones, right?
Oh my
so we got to get big bags.
Oh my goodness, the best thing to do, then you need to buy the roll of the make your own bags. They don't have as big as that.
Well, thank you very much. We're almost up to 6 o'clock. And thank you for pulling to the side of the road. I'm so glad you're not talking while you're driving.
Absolutely
and,
not. First.
Is there anything you want to say for your closing?
Again, really, you can grow kapocha. It's just make sure you select for the good characteristics, because kapocha is one of the crops that has so many pests and diseases in Hawaii. They love it, as we love it too. So you want to go with the good characteristics variety, not how it looks.
When I lived in Pololo, I threw the seeds into my compost pile and apparently didn't get hot enough because my vine grew to more than 40 feet underneath my house, the neighbor's house, and none of the neighbors would take any more kapochas from me.
That's the
so
aloha.
Once you get the good one, it works.
Yes, it does.
So I want to thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. We had lots of really good questions, and your expertise was wonderful for everybody. And again, thank you for everybody. And thank you for all the AARP volunteers who have been helping. And we will see you in 2 weeks, November 4th, for a healthy lasagna. Aloha.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Mahalo.